Greetings, vinyl community. From Eastern North Carolina, Mr. Rick here once again with another recorded video. But this time I thought we'd take a look at some old pop music and get off the country for a little while. You know, back in 1955, when rock and roll came along, it shook the music business. It shook it real bad, as a matter of fact. Country music had to take a nosedive and had to go and reinvent itself, so to speak. They got rid of all the banjos and the gourds and all the fiddles and went with choirs and violins and things like that to soften country music because the record sales just weren't there anymore. Rock and roll, the kids that were listening to the hillbilly music had stopped and were buying rock and roll records. Popular music, though, said, no way, we're not going to change. And they didn't change. And by the mid-1970s, popular music had basically turned into soft rock. And that's what this is about. This is about the pre-era before that. And what used to be, because they don't play popular music on the radio anymore. You very rarely hear anything by Perry Como or anybody of that nature. It's basically all rock and roll. So I thought we took a look at some of the old pop tunes and pop albums that we've had from 1930s, 40s, 50s on up into the 60s. We'll start off with this fella here. You find these records all over the place now, his albums. Herb Alpert and Tijuana Brass. The woman that's in this picture, actually, she just died not too long ago. And she was pregnant when they took this picture. I don't know who she was, but this album sold really big. And you find these in the used record bins. And it's a pretty good album. I mean, it's got Herb Alpert, it's got Taste of Honey on it, and it's got Love Potion Number 9 and Whipped Cream, and there's several other good tunes on it. If you enjoy trumpet music, basically, with the Tijuana sound, this is a good one from Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. Back in the 1950s, the Ames Brothers were popular. They were a vocal group featuring Ed Ames, and this is one of their albums. This is from 1959. This is a famous hits of famous quartets with Hugo Winterhalter and his orchestra, and it's a good album if you enjoy quartet singing, because that's what they were basically about. Back in the 1950s, that kind of took off again, and those kind of groups were famous, and this is not a bad sound. The famous Ames Brothers. Here's another group that was popular in the 1930s and 40s, and that's the Andrews Sisters. The Andrews Sisters were big, especially throughout the World War II years. And then they broke up around 1951, and they got back together again and started re-recording some stuff around in the late 1950s, and they put out several albums, and this is one of them. This is just before Stereophonic Sound, and it's called the Andrews Sisters in Hi-Fi, and they do all their old hits that they'd had for years and years and redid them. I'm not sure who's doing the orchestration behind them, but if you enjoy the Andrews Sisters, or if you're curious about them, that's a good album if you can find it. These old Andrews Sisters albums are kind of rare. You don't see them. Way back now to the 1920s. Here's a fella that was big. He put out a song called My Blue Heaven, and that just went phenomenal back in I think it was 1927. Also, he had Ramona, which was a big record for him, and After You've Gone and several others. Gene Austin was really a big name back in the 1920s, 100 years ago. And this is an album that is basically a combination of his early stuff from the 1920s and 30s. Of course, you can't forget old Tony Bennett. He is one of the staples in American popular music. I mean, he just, what can you say about him? He got started in the early 1950s and continued on. He just died not too long ago, about a year ago or so. But his records are still out there, and I find the earlier you can find them, the older the album, the better off it is. I like the early Tony Bennett stuff, and this is one of them. This is the big hit from 1958. Boulevard of Broken Dreams is on this album. This and Without a Song was the other hit, and a good album called Tony from Tony Bennett. Another fellow that when I was growing up, you didn't hear much about him. They just didn't play his records on the radio stations my father listened to. And we had, you heard Love Letters in the Sand all the time, and that was all you had. And it made you think that, this guy wasn't very good. But a few years ago, I found a copy of his great hits. And I said, what the heck? So I went ahead and bought it and listened to it, and I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed that album fantastically. And I started collecting Pat Boone stuff. This is one of his first albums. It's called Howdy. And this came out, I think, in 1956. I think this is actually his second album. Matter of fact, I'm sure it is. And this is his first album from 1956. It's just called Pat Boone. And Ain't That a Shame is on it, and Oh, I'll Be Home, I think, was the other hit that he had. And a good album, too. Like I said, I was surprised how good Pat Boone really was until I started listening to him. If you're a rocker, of course, you're not going to appreciate him, because he's kind of dreamy. But his stuff is good. I enjoy Pat Boone a lot. As a matter of fact, I collected both his greatest hits albums and love them. Okay, from there we go to the Boston Pops Orchestra. Here's another fellow that's been around for a long time, or was around for a long time. Arthur Fiedler started taking the Boston Pops Orchestra way back in the 1920s. He started guiding them. And this is an album, I believe it's from 1963, and it's called Stardust, because Stardust was the hit recording on it. And it's a good album. Just a whole bunch of old classics that have been around for a long time, and a good album. And if you enjoy orchestrated music like I do, this is a good one also. Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops. We showed you the Andrews Sisters a little while ago. Here's the group that was before them. These are the girls that actually influenced the Andrews Sisters back in the 1940s. They were called the Boswell Sisters, and they took off in the 1930s, and they didn't last too long, only 3 or 4 years, but they had a lot of, Connie Boswell was in a wheelchair, and the two sisters, and they just had such a style that they took standard songs, and then they made them their own, and they put a lot of jazz behind them and changed the timing, and it was just fascinating the way they take an old song and completely redo it, and to where you don't hardly recognize it, that everything's so different. But these, if you get a chance and find some Boswell Sisters, they're a good listen also. They really are. I enjoy them. I've got 2 albums by them. Up to the 1950s we go. This is from 1958. This lady was fairly popular in her day also. Teresa Brewer. And this is her 1958 album, Miss Music. And she had been popular, oh gosh, Music, Music, Music was one of her biggest hits. She also had one called Jilted. And I'm not sure exactly what the other ones were, but she's a good singer also. Teresa Brewer, the old pop singers. Here's another lady that, what can you say about her? She just, one of these that could have made it better if she had been on probably in my opinion, if she'd been on a better label, or one of the major labels. But she was a great singer, but she just wasn't very popular. She made records for Liberty, and her name was Vicki Carr. And she had just a few top hits, but had a wonderful voice and really was a great singer. but just didn't make it the way Barbra Streisand, for example, did. They came out about the same time. There's the back of that one, if you can see it. And I think she was great. I really do. I liked her music a lot, too. She was a good singer. And another one of my favorites in the pop field. This lady came out in the late 1940s and took the music world by storm. In the 1950s, if I can get, I'll tell you what, let me take this off here. This is Rosemary Clooney's greatest hits. And this is a great album also. She had a lot of hits. Tenderly, Half as Much, Beautiful Brown Eyes, This Old House, Come On to My House, Blues in the Night, Why Don't You Haul Off and Hug Me, and several others. She was really something. She was a great singer. I enjoy Rosemary Clooney's albums. I've got a bunch of them, and I like her music a lot. And from 1958, another fellow that we lost too soon. He was around through the 40s, the 50s, and then died of lung cancer in the 1960s. I read somewhere that he used to like to smoke cigarettes 2 or 3 packs a day because he thought his voice, it made his voice sound more resonant. And that's Nat King Cole. This especially is a dream of an album. The Very Thought of You is what it's called. And most of the songs are about finding somebody and falling in love with them. And it's just a beautiful album. It's got The Very Thought of You is the title cut, but beautiful. Here's Russ Columbo. He and Bing Crosby were popular. They were very close competitors back in the 1930s. And he was sitting at home, sitting in an office with one of the people being interviewed. And the guy had a statue of some pistols. And he struck a match on the pistols. And believe it or not, the spark from the match ignited the bullet. And it hit the chimney of a hearth and ricocheted and hit this guy right square in the head and killed him dead. But he was back in the 1930s, he was one of the most popular singers, right along with Bing Crosby. They were neck and neck as far as popularity concerned. And his records are good also. A lot of the women enjoyed his stuff from the 1930s. That's Russ Columbo. And finally for this week, in the popular section, another fellow that came out in the 1940s and lasted, golly, he sang up into the 1980s. Matter of fact, I've got a Christmas video about him, a Christmas concert over in England that he gave, and he looks like he's in his late 80s. He was still going back then. And that's Perry Como. Here's his Golden Hits, Volume 1, and these are the hits from the 1940s and 50s. That he recorded, and a good album too. If you enjoy good singing, Perry Como is one of the best, I'll tell you. Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes, Till the End of Time, Prisoner of Love, just many of his big hits. And you can't go wrong with a performer like Perry. Perry had some great recordings. And that's it for this week. We'll jump back into the country again next week and go from, somewhere in the 1960s and see how far we get. And I've enjoyed it. Hope you have. Hope you've enjoyed it. If there's anything I can do for you, if there's anything you want to see or any information about albums that I can give you, let me know in the comments section. I'd be more than happy to let you know about any of these artists, okay? Okay, until we meet you again, this is Mr. Rick saying that if the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise, we'll see you for long.